All right, so I've got his movement test. I'm going to go ahead and move these 4 layers, which cycle through his movement in place, onto my assets folder. Kind of moving them back and forth. And while they're still selected, I can move them into place. Just so if I ever need to do something else with those movements, I have them somewhere. They're in my Puppet box now. So the assets is like your resource for every element you've used. And I'm going to use it now for this mist, because the first thing I want to start building up is this mist that's coming in. And I might label it. So mist is like M1, M2, M3. So now we're starting to change the background. And then I'll make this M4, because it's the big culmination of them all. So ultimate mist is all of this. Okay. Now if I think I can use these in my stage, I'll save my assets and I'll bring them all over to my stage. And I need to move them up and above all my existing frames. Now the problem is, of course, it just added those to every frame I've outputted so far. And that's the problem with having frames active while I'm bringing in layers. So what I'm going to do is reduce all of my saved layers. Or not my layers, my frames. Okay? So now this is my last frame. Right there. And now I'm going to create mist coming in. But this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to output new frames now, make frames from layers. Get rid of my background plate. All of those work. I have a movement cycle here. I need to turn on a background behind this. Wait a minute. Let me go back in my history. So I don't want any of these. Basically, I'm getting rid of the frames that don't make sense, right? Oh, I know why I have all of these, because I never deleted them. All right. So now, here I have the animation as I've set up. I've already set up 14 frames. Right now it's going way too fast. And I can set a timing that I like. 0.2 just to start. All right. So now I get to decide how to make that mist work. But the thing is, I want the mist to work while he's still moving. So what I do is I take his 4 movement frames, and actually, he's got more than that. From here on out, from 7 to 14, he's moving. So what do I want? I probably want from 8 to 14. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to select all those by holding down Shift, and then I'm going to use the timeline window options, and I'm going to say copy those frames. Then I'm going to say paste those frames, and it's going to paste them after the frames I have selected. And I say OK. So it's starting on frame 15. And so basically it's just looping those same frames again. So I have a nice long movement test. The difference is from frame 15 on, I want to start building mist. So frame 15, I add a little bit of mist. Frame 16, I add both layers of mist. Frame 17, I add 3 layers of mist. So that by the time I'm at frame 18, I'm going to have them all. Now, if that seems like too much, I can play with the opacity of the mist at any one of those. Like that one seems too strong. So I'm going to take the opacity and the blending mode, take it down more, and I can vary it. But this one I can make, yeah, it's still a little strong. Take all these and take them down a little bit. And then this one, yeah, way too strong. Just to give it all some variety. So I'm adding layers and I'm changing opacities within the frames. And I'm back to M1. And so the mist is going to gather, and now I want a storm to start gathering. I go to here. Let's see. Put this at a. Just going to play with these at different opacities. And actually, I don't think I want M4 to ever be on yet. Not until the storm's really going, because it almost looks like rain. Okay, so at frame 21 now, I'm going to really build it up, and I'm going to start bringing in a storm cloud. So this is right here. I'm at the end. So the mist is showing the storm about to come in, because you get this sense of the clouds building. And I might even start to darken the light a little bit. Let's see. And I can do that just by playing with levels on this new layer I'm using and darkening the midtones. So now not only is it getting mistier, but it's starting to get a little stranger looking. Okay. Good. Now I'm going to delete these empty frames by dragging them down to the trash, not using the delete button. And now I'm going to output that whole cycle, flatten frames into layers. Because mine's getting pretty complicated. Now I have 21 dedicated layers before my storm starts to roll, and I want to delete all the layers behind it. Let's play that through. It's a little fast, that's okay. Yep, all that works. Okay, now that I have those frames, I can select all of them in the timeline, drag them down to the trash, and now I can build some storm assets to bring in. I'm going to save my stage at that point, because I've got all the layers I need for those first 21 moments. And it took me 21 moments to get through these first three. Average of 7 frames per keyframe. And now, I'm going to take my last frame here, just as reference for color. Right? I'm going to select it all, copy it, bring it into my assets. So it's right there. And why that's helpful is now I can bring in the big guns. And what I mean by that is not just using the texture fills I used for my landscape assignment and my featurescape assignment, but actually I can composite with GIFs just like I can composite with raster images. And so I found some storm reference GIFs. You're not required to do this, but it's something that's available to you. So, let's see, I have a bunch of them. I think I like this one the best, just because it's spooky and old movie looking. So I can view it within a web browser. I really like this part of it. Those storm clouds gather really quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that GIF and I'm going to move it drag and drop it right into my assets. See what happens. So if you do that, it will just come in as one flat image, because a GIF is just a simple way of rendering an image. But I don't want just that one image as a texture overlay. So I want the whole animated sequence and put that in my assets. So to do that, instead of dragging and dropping it as I would a raster composite, I'm going to open it with Photoshop on its own, and it will give me all its layers and even its timeline with its timing. And so this GIF is made up of 24 layers, all of which I can select, drag over into my assets. Once they're all selected, I can transform them, stretch them across my sky, my scene, whatever it is I'm doing. Let's see how this works. Right. And now I have this rolling group. Now while they're all selected, I can also try to figure out what's the best overlay. So maybe have it on overlay mode. Ooh, that's nice. Or maybe have it on pin light. Nope. Soft light. Yeah, soft light's the one I want. And so then as they build, that whole shadow is going to come across really strongly. Okay, now how do I make this work in a way that's just not crazy? Well, let's make a folder for them, a group for them, and I'm going to call it Storm Clouds. And this is moving left, or I guess from my right to my left. So right to left. And I'm going to move all 27 of those layers, which is like its own little movement cycle, into that group. Save it, save those assets. I know those assets will look good on top of my stage. So I go to my stage, I can close the GIF itself, open in Photoshop. I'm going to move that whole group, that whole folder, drag and drop it, and move it, well, it's all selected. I'm going to auto-select group. Move it onto my stage. And that moved every layer within it. Okay, so what's tricky is I have a movement cycle that I want to use that I also need to bring in. So I'm going to create a new group, which is just called Character Moving Cycle, which is 4 frames or so. And these are permanent things that I'm going to use. So I'm going to go back to my assets and bring those in. Remember the 1, 2, 3, 4. Bring those onto my stage. Using the Move tool, move those all into, while they're still all selected, all into my movement cycle group. Move him in place. And then that pesky rock, good thing I have it as an asset. I got to move that as well. Put that in place so he's overlapping the character. All right, which will be kind of nice because the mist will never affect that rock if it's always in front. Okay, and now I'm basically animating between the movement cycle and the mist. All right. So now I'm in a